Crosspolitic begins in 3, 2, 1.
I have a heart that breaks for a dying city.
Stop cursing your future. Is not true.
For all intents and purposes, I am a woman.
No government, no political system has ultimate supremacy. Jesus is King of Kings, and it's about time our nation returned in humble submission to his lordship.
You are not protecting women. You are authorizing the destruction of 500,000 little women every year.
I didn't start it. But, sir, with all due respect, that's the argument of a 5-year-old. I didn't start it.
Right, when the Spirit comes upon people, they go to war, they go to battle, and the enemies of God are driven back and they're slaughtered.
You are listening to Crosspolitic with Gabe Wrench, the Water Boy, Pastor Toby Sumter, and the Chocolate Knox.
Hello, y'all. Welcome to Crosspolitic. Thank you for joining us this week.
He ain't say it. He ain't say it. He ain't say it.
So we got, for Crosspolitic news coming up, we're going to talk about something Trump said this week.
He ain't say it.
He ain't say what?
He ain't
we'll get to it.
He say, he ain't say. That's
whatever
what
he say.
He say, he ain't say.
And we got some Twitter censoring conservatives. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, well, duh.
Yes, I know.
Is that news?
Shocker. Liberals control media.
I can't believe it.
And we're shocked.
Guys, I think I might be crying.
Is it
Anderson Cooper.
Because he's here?
That's Anderson Cooper.
Because of Twitter.
We also have Chaba Leidenfrost in the studio.
Who is wishing he wasn't here right now.
No, this is pretty entertaining. I'm just watching this.
He's watching it all unfold.
I like it.
His eyes are getting wider and wider.
And then we got Joost Nixon coming up on the second segment.
Wow.
Pastor Joost Nixon is a great,
what a
great time with
what
him.
What a ministry.
And before we get there, let's we got a couple things that we want to introduce to you guys. First, we got next week we got a governor for Idaho running for Idaho coming on the show. That's next.
We're not going to say his name.
Not going to say his name.
Secret.
And then since we got video,
have they listened to the governor's show? Do they know what they're running for?
So this is another candidate.
A different candidate
is running for
governor
in Idaho.
Coming on our show.
Coming on our show. He's going to be in-house?
Yes, he'll be in the studio.
In the studio with us.
on camera.
Oh, get ready.
And then we got Jordan Peterson coming on in 2 weeks. Do the camera thing.
Boom.
Do the camera.
Boom.
Jordan Peterson coming on. In 2 weeks, we're going to talk about his 12 rules for life.
Jordan Peterson?
The Jordan. The Canadian Jordan. The Canadian Jordan.
He probably...
Does he know what he's in for either? He doesn't listen.
He doesn't
He's
listen.
never heard of what is a cross-politic?
He doesn't know. No, he's got a lot of flack, though, because he won't use the gender-neutral pronouns and stuff like that. He's been waving the free speech flag, and I've had a number of people asking me, have you been listening to Jordan Peterson? And I said, no, I know who I follow him on Twitter now, but that's awesome.
Yeah. So he's coming in. He's coming in 2 weeks, man.
On Crosspolitic in 2 weeks.
And then two more things. Lastly, or two more things, and lastly, that doesn't work.
That's
three things.
That's a Gabeism.
That's two more things. Lastly, I'm going to be in the Fort Worth area. I'm speaking at a homeschool conference while I'm out there. And we have a bunch of listeners. DFW Reformed. It's a Facebook group. There's about 400 of y'all out there. Well, they're getting a pub spot open on Monday night, 8 o'clock, and I'll be there. And we're trying to arrange the pub to where it'll be a side room where we can hang out, drink beer, have fun, talk about education, culture, and faith. And
kind of like the Reformers did.
That's right.
Kind of like Luther.
Right. Luther, C.S. Lewis. That's the Londoner.
Question.
At Colleyville, Texas, just outside of Fort Worth. Yes, Knox.
Yes.
I heard.
Did you have to pick a pub?
I did. The Londoner.
But the pub that you're going to be at, do they?
My buddy Matt picked the pub.
Did they have to pick a pub? What about Christians who don't drink and don't want to be in a pub?
They have Dr. Pepper there.
Okay.
And that's all that matters in Texas. It's Dr. Pepper. That's right.
Hey guys, I tried for you.
It came up.
If you want to keep your Christian testimony, you can't go there.
Hey, you just led me into that, man. So Baptist friends, you're welcome to come.
Drink some Dr. Pepper.
Teetotalers, you're welcome to come. Love to have you there.
All right.
Lastly,
we have our friend Ben Greenfield put together a Christian gratitude journal. You can check that out at christiangratitude.com, and we'll send out our email.
This is the kind of thing for people that, like, maybe if you got stuck in your private devotions and feel like you just need something to kind of push you along. It's just a notebook, and it's got some structure, and it's focused on the virtue of gratitude.
Yeah.
So, this is really good. Look at this. What am I grateful for today? You know, and I ask my kids these questions, and then I don't do this myself.
Right.
Like, I should really be doing some of this.
I mean,
this is great.
It's sometimes you need that question right in front of you.
I love this. What biblical truth did I discover in today's reading?
Right.
Who can I pray for and who can I serve today? That's great stuff.
And you know what's hilarious about this? Later on in the show, Joost will talk about this, how all these pastors and church leaders in these foreign countries will wake up super early in the morning to go to listen, to hear the word preached, to hear the word taught, for them to grow and learn in grace. And they go through this huge sacrifice.
And they're so grateful for it.
And then we sit here and we have to work on being
my
grateful.
Bible's 3 feet away, and I'm like, oh.
I don't have my coffee, so I'm not going to read it right now, right? And so this is a good little practical way of just kind of getting in the word daily and being able to journal about it. So ChristianGratitude.com. Let's get into Crosspolitic news. Of course, the big thing that happened this past week, and I'm quoting what was said in the room.
I got a little clip.
Said in the room. Yeah, why don't you play the clip?
President Trump deriding immigrants from Haiti and some nations in Africa, asking a group of lawmakers, why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here, before suggesting that the U.S. should accept more immigrants from countries like Norway. A person familiar
like
with
Norway.
the meeting tells
we
CNN
want more
that
white people, blonde
Mr.
hair.
Trump then went further, saying, why do we need more Haitians? Take them out. The White House not denying the president's racially charged remarks, insisting that Mr. Trump is fighting for permanent solutions that make our country stronger by welcoming those who can contribute to our society, grow our economy, and assimilate into our great nation.
Oh, man.
So, first of all, there's witnesses that said this. Trump's not denying it. I saw an article.
No, he is.
I was going to say, I saw an article later that he did deny it. But you have witness in the room saying he said it. Trump's now denying it.
Oh, he is denying it.
Yeah, now he is.
Oh,
it took a couple days.
That's what you were doing earlier. I didn't say it. I'm sorry, I missed it.
We tried to set up Toby as best as possible.
I was like, what?
Yeah, no, he's denying it.
Trump it was like a day before he started coming out denying it.
He's playing a game.
It's like almost like he's playing a game. If there is a game there, I don't know.
Of course, there's a game there.
But come on. I mean, this is. Oh, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
we were talking about this.
This is like the same song. What verse are we on?
I lost count, actually.
Of Trump says something, does something, and the media hyperventilates.
Right.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness. Anderson Cooper is crying on CNN.
No, I didn't see that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's like all choked up because he's been in Haiti quite a bit, following up on the hurricane.
Right.
And
spending Bill and Hillary's money that they've raised.
But okay,
for Haiti.
No.
There's several.
Bill and Hillary are spending the money.
I know. That's my point.
Nobody spends Bill and Hillary's money they raised.
Basically, about 10% of the Clinton Foundation's money that they raised actually went to going towards what is being raised for. So like 80 to 90% of it, which is hundreds of millions of dollars, actually doesn't make it to the field. But anyways,
I'm
neither here nor there.
I'm shocked.
Yeah.
There's layers upon layers here. I mean, we have.
Let's just start at the top.
Okay, which was?
I don't know.
Where's the top?
I don't know.
So I'm going to play it this way. So maybe he did, maybe he didn't say what he's being.
He ain't say what he said. He said.
He ain't say
that. They say that he said.
Anyways,
like that.
let's just. I mean, is Trump capable of saying what he's being accused of saying?
Come on, everybody.
All day long. All day long.
Yeah.
So let's just let's say for the sake of argument, he said it. CNN and the media are hyperventilating. They're breaking into tears, clutching at their pearls. Right?
Which has kind of been enjoyable in one sense to watch.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
But I mean, guys, this is Victorian. Right?
What do you mean by Victorian?
Trump, this is fainting couch prudery. Like Trump said a bad word.
That's yes.
Yeah. He said a bad word.
But it's also the media is playing it.
But they're playing it as completely racist.
Yeah, that's right.
And so the real idol here that he hit is the idol of multiculturalism.
Right.
Right? That all cultures are equal. That all cultures you can't say that some cultures that God's blessed them more, that they've advanced further. You can't say that.
Right.
That's heresy.
Right.
And on the
Is there ultimate superior form of culture? Every Christian has to say yes on that.
Yes.
Every Christian has to say yes on that, because every time we proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, we're saying there is an ultimate form of culture that everybody needs to be achieving to.
Right.
So we're already...
Is a culture that tells the truth superior to a culture that lies?
Yes. Yeah.
Is a culture that respects private property superior to a culture that does not respect private property?
That'll grab it, steal it,
yes.
take it.
Right. So that's not even an issue. Right. That's not even like.
But that's where we are.
But what's going on here is whether or not those people have the opportunity to come into our country.
Right. And so what I'm taking, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think so. Trump's basically saying, okay, these countries need help. They're problem countries. And I don't think he's saying something about like that there's something about like being born there that means that you're inherently inferior. But I think what he's saying is you're not going to find people in those countries that are ready to come and build our country and make it better.
How does he know that?
Look at the country.
But I'm saying, though, we've throughout America's history, what we have here, even from the influx of other countries that have been poor countries that have been horrible in how they've done socialism, and so people have influx to America. They come here and then they start working. They adapt to our way of culture, understanding it's a better and more superior way of doing things. Maybe that's the reason they want to come here.
Right. Sometimes that's true.
So I'm saying, though, like, what makes you say we already know that everybody that's coming from there is not going to want that?
First of all, I didn't say.
Yeah, I'm just saying. No, but he doesn't.
We're saying what he's saying. What are he's supposedly saying?
Look. Of course, it's a horrible place. They want to come here.
Right.
But why? Hey, why wouldn't you want to come here and adapt to our culture and our way of doing things when it works? And you get
part of the problem is I think you're right. I think that still happens.
Sure.
It still happens, and that is what happened historically. Part of the problem, though, is that we now have a welfare state.
Yeah, but that's not their fault.
I know.
Let's not blame them for that.
But what I'm saying is that we used to have a setup where if you moved here, there was opportunity for everyone. If you were ready to bust your butt and work hard and be honest, you could make it.
Yep.
And so,
I don't think that's left yet.
But I think it's still around. Absolutely, people that want that.
Because I hope it's still around.
But we also have people.
I need it.
but we still have people. We also now, in addition to that opportunity, we also have a lot of people who want America to be a completely different kind of culture, where you can come here and you can get handouts. You can come here and you get babysat by nanny state.
Yeah.
Cuss them folks out.
Do I see a hand?
What? You talk crazy to them folks. You guys are messing up the fabric and the nature of our culture, so that we can't bring people from other horrible countries to live here and enjoy our culture. Stop it. Mm-hmm. That's not the conversation that he's having right now.
Yeah.
The conversation he's having.
He can't have that conversation because he's complicit in creating those programs for doing it. You know what I'm saying?
If he said what he didn't say, okay. If he said what he didn't say, then he's having that conversation, but he ain't pointing the finger back here either.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
Hey,
amen.
So hey, let's how about this? If you want to come to America, then you have to abide. Let's make it stricter to come here. This is a standard.
Right.
You know, this is how you got to live here. You break these standards, it proves you don't want to be here.
Right.
Get out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to come here to flee that, are we going to tell you no?
Right. No, I hear
that's
that.
That's not a Christian-run government at all. I mean, it's not anyway. But I mean,
we're
saying,
so far.
Come on, Dr. Moore would be against that.
Hey, he's not allowed. He's not allowed in this conversation yet.
No, he can't say anything to Trump.
Lawrence Jones. This is in my Twitter feed, and I thought this was really interesting. I'm just going to play Lawrence Jones talking about this whole situation.
Who's Lawrence Jones?
He's somebody who was on Fox News. He's a black guy. And if you're black,
he's black.
He's a black guy.
Oh,
so I just thought I'd extend the courtesy.
I don't like dropping the word racist every time someone says something that I don't like, but I do believe that the president's comments weren't racist, but they were ignorant. When we're talking about
insulting.
these are people, and it wasn't so much of just calling it, the S word. It was the fact that he said that we should be taking people from other countries. These people are fleeing depression, corruption, and that's the reason why they want to come to America. And I believe the president stepped on his own message by making this a race conversation now, when we could be talking about how the president has had low numbers for black unemployment.
That's true.
Talk about black businesses and less black people on food stamps. But instead, we got to talk about something, because he stepped on his own message yet again.
Yep. So let me answer that, or this is not really an answer to that. It's kind of a different angle. If Trump was in the country visiting that country, whether it's Haiti or wherever, and he said that to one of the locals who was genuinely oppressed by that government, who was being robbed, stolen from, his children being taken away or whatever, and Trump said that to that person, that Haitian would be like, yeah, you're right. It's horrible here. It's awful. And all of a sudden, but we get like all these sensibilities here in the U.S.
That's not what he's saying.
But I think that's
not what he's saying. He's saying it's awful, and I ain't gonna help you.
But that's to the.
Hey, this is a piece of junk place. You'll never come to America.
Right. Yeah, to Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
To Lawrence's point, that's kind of Trump is kind of eating his own message.
That's part of maybe the thing that is very unclear about the comments that are coming out of here. So the media has an agenda to smear Trump.
If he said what he said that he didn't say that y'all said he said,
and so they're latching on to particularly inflammatory statements, and that's what we're getting,
and making us.
That's what we're getting fed.
That's right.
And so if he is saying this is a junk country and I'm not going to help you, then yeah, fair enough. But I think, and that in my mind is probably the worst thing that he said. But
I agree.
He's getting spun though as being a racist. He's getting spun as being saying because they have black or brown skin, you can't come into my country, and I want you to come into my country if you got white skin. But that's just patently on the surface, just not there.
And I want to get to Chopper real quick on this
I do too.
But as a Christian, still a falling Christian nation. As much as it is that
asterisk,
fallen,
asterisk,
yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So as much as we're still trying to push that, I want a revival. I think
unless you're Russell Moore.
Okay.
No, come on.
You just
no. Russell Moore. Russell Moore. He's
invited to the show.
No, he told us. He wrote an article.
Oh, that's right.
He doesn't want theocracy.
No Christian countries. No Christian countries.
Yeah, he's wrong. No. Anyway, so but one of the things is that you don't favor just the people. We've learned this from the scriptures. You don't favor the people who can just do you good.
This is true.
Yeah.
Come on now.
This is true.
You favor those that can't. That's where the blessing for you is. That's where the blessing for them is. And we are disciplers of nations.
Right.
We disciple them to something.
Right.
They don't have to be there. A lot of you look at 3-4 generations, a lot of people weren't there. And then over time they were discipled because of the gospel thriving here.
Right.
For better or worse. That's not what's in play here. Now, Chaba, I want to get to you real quick because I don't want to be interrupted by these guys and tell me how wrong I am. But you hear this, and you got to go over to Haiti.
Well, and Chaba is our missionary to the Ivory Coast, right? The Bakwai people of the Ivory Coast.
Let's say he said this about the Ivory Coast.
Okay.
And you go over there, and all of a sudden everybody's looking at you twisted-eyed.
Yeah, and that's possible. I leave on Monday. And
so you haven't been there since Trump's been elected yet? Have you?
I have.
Okay.
And certainly Obama, they loved Obama for a while, and then a lot of the Christians saw what was happening, and they're not really happy with Obama. But Trump, the feedback I'm getting from our guys there, friends that I have there, is like, this guy's a man. This guy speaks, he speaks just like he says things that everybody's thinking that are true. Wow. So I'm going to get some feedback. People are going to probably say stuff. But it's so true that the majority of the people, they would love to leave and go somewhere else where there's more opportunity.
Yeah.
They've got people in higher places that things are really corrupt in many of the countries over there. And they would love to get out of there. And that's why you get the brain drain, the people leaving to get jobs elsewhere.
The smart, capable ones who can figure it out and get out.
Exactly. Head to France, head to the U.S., and there's groups of those there that periodically come back and they're concerned about their country, but they're going to stay in their job. They're not necessarily going to go back and stay because of the corruption and of the difficulties that they would have there. So there are a lot of people who want to get out.
Yeah. I interrupted you before so I can let Chava so you can forget what you were going to say. What you going to say today?
No, I successfully forgot. No, I was just going to have you need to say something for us in the native tongue, in Bakwai.
Yeah, this is the Bakwai language that we went over there to learn and speak. It's a group that lives in the southwest, a smaller language, the southwest of Cote d'Ivoire. Nanging basaro, mba gibinyon, ma nsr se so se gbe bakwe abre ma bakuipa ma bakuipia me be ma nyosawi pia be ama nyosawi ka yagungiwo.
What did you just say?
Hey man,
He's speaking in tongues on Crosspolitic. Yeah. What'd you say?
I said my name is Saro, which is the name they gave me over there.
Uh-huh.
I'm a white guy, and I spent 20 years in Cote d'Ivoire amongst the Bakwe, and I came there in order to learn their language and to translate the Bible and give them the Bible, God's word.
Wow. Amen.
And we're going to talk about that on the third segment.
Amen.
Yep. But when we come back to Crosspolitic, Joost Nixon next.
Joost.
Oh, don't tell him I did that. Next on Crosspolitic. Joost, I knew that.
Classical Conversation supports homeschooling parents by cultivating the love of learning through a Christian worldview in fellowship with other families. We provide a classical, Christ-centered curriculum, local, like-minded communities across the United States and in several countries, and we train parents who are striving to be great classical educators in the home. For more information and to get connected, please visit our website at classicalconversations.com. Classical, Christian, get connected, get community.
For 21 years and counting, New St. Andrews College has sought to obey Christ's Great Commission to disciple nations and build him a house, not just in Jerusalem, but throughout the world. Not with stones and mortar, but with living stones. We build and fight. This is the task of a Christian liberal arts college, to equip students with the tools to build and fight. And this is our joyful task as we seek to graduate leaders who shape culture through wise and victorious living. To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu/explore.
Hey, hand me your cup.
Oh yeah, you gotta pour that for me. Welcome back to Crosspolitic, you all. David is about to pour me a cup of coffee.
Yes, I am. So I love you.
Everything's going to be better in just a minute.
Scrumptious.
But with us today, we have actually two guests. One in-house and one coming at us from freezing cold Minneapolis, Minnesota. Mr. Pastor Joost Nixon. I think he's actually a doctor pastor.
He came back on the show.
Joost Nixon. He came back.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Hold on. I got to tell you.
Okay.
I'm going to give the stats. Joost Nixon grew up in a suburb of Los Angeles, California. He's from L.A., San Fernando Valley. Was carpeted with orange trees at the time. He was a rough kid with a broken home, but a Christian family loved him and let him play with their kids.
Oh, wow.
And he heard the gospel and he believed while in grade school. Early on, he had a passion for what God is doing abroad. He met and married a woman named Kristen with a like passion. 20-odd years ago, they moved to South Africa to help establish a pastoral training school, now Christ Seminary. Since then, Joost has planted and pastored a church in Washington for 15 years, as well as helping other churches get started in Washington, Idaho, and Montana.
Wow.
He has a BS in Business Administration from California State. He has an MDiv from Master's Seminary and a DMin from Covenant Theological Seminary, where he wrote his dissertation on factors that contribute to the apostasy of emerging adults. Wow. Joost and Kristen have 8 children.
Hey, baptized, right? I'm
pretty sure they're all baptized.
I'm pretty sure they all are.
6 boys, 2 well-protected girls. He loves to garden and cook funky ethnic food, it says.
We'll talk about that later.
His children find his weakness for late 70s disco music a matter of acute embarrassment. Sometimes they don't let him outside. Joost has been involved in classical Christian education for many years and has a special interest in medieval studies. He serves at TLI, which is Training Leaders International, as Vice President of Global Partners. Joost, thanks very much for coming back on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
And really quickly, before we dive in, also want to introduce Chaba.
We'll get more into Taba later.
Okay, all right.
We'll get into him in the third episode.
Okay.
Yeah, third segment.
Okay,
yeah.
Never mind then. We don't want to know about it. Joost, talk to us about what is Training Leaders International and what are you guys up to?
Yep. Training Leaders International. Maybe it would be better for me just to if we took a step back and looked at kind of the situation with training pastors in the majority world, Asia, Africa, Latin America. In the West, there's about one pastor with training to every 150 people. And in Asia, Africa, Latin America, that ratio is 1 to 450,000.
Wow.
So I didn't mess up the commas. That's 1 to every 450,000. So that's kind of hard to visualize. So I thought, okay, you guys are in Idaho. Right next door, we got Washington. Let's just do the math using Washington and Idaho. So the population of Washington last year in 2016, actually a year and a half ago in 2016, was 7.3 million. Okay. And in Idaho, it was like 1.6 million. Okay. So let Idaho be Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and let Washington represent the West. So in this scenario of one trained pastor to 450,000 people, that means Idaho gets 3.5 trained pastors to care for the entire state. Wow. So my question for you, Toby, is where would you put those 3.5 people? Like one in Boise?
Right.
Who gets the half pastor? Sandpoint? Does Sandpoint get the half pastor?
Beauville.
But
where's Judea at? Where's Judea? Because that's where we're starting at.
Where's Judea?
That's what, yeah.
And beyond.
That's where we're starting at. So that's where the first.
I just want to know what that ratio is in Bahamas.
It's not like we haven't seen a ratio like this before, right? The 12 disciples,
Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria,
and beyond. Yeah.
So
we'll let Joost finish that analogy.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
What was that? I missed that.
I was just saying we'll let Joost finish that analogy. That was it.
Yeah, okay, here we go. I'm coming in for a landing.
Okay.
Just hang with me. Now, the hard part, though, is that, like, if Toby and 2.5 other guys got to pastor the entire state of Idaho, I mean, that would be hard enough. But if there were another 100 or 1,000 pastors who were doing their best, but they were just teaching what they know and what they heard, and what did they hear? Right. They heard the health, wealth, prosperity gospel.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, so somebody's kind of messing with your teaching. It's tough. Meanwhile, next door, Washington State, you've got 48,000. They represent the West, right?
Okay.
Roughly 1 to 150 people. So 48,000 pastors with some training. So what TLI does, you ask me, what do we do? What we do is we take some of those 48,000 pastors over in Washington and we give them cross-cultural training so they could deal with those strange Idaho people, right? And equip those pastors to teach the word. That's what we do between the West and Asia, Africa, Latin America. We're trying to mobilize pastors in the States, not just pastors, though, elders, seminary students, seminary profs, whatever. Give them some cross-cultural training, equip them with some curriculum that we're using to basically go from hermeneutics to homiletics in Asia, Africa, Latin America, so that pastors there are teaching the Word of God, like you enjoy every single Sunday, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do. That's
so
do
you largely work with pastors who have a church to focus on, and then you kind of do some sort of short-term mission placement, or kind of how does that work?
Yep, we always go at the invitation of a national partner wherever we're going. So there's a leader on the other end. Maybe he's a school. Maybe he's got a pastoral training school. Maybe he's a pastor. Usually it's both. And what we do is we go for 3 years, 3 times a year. We bring a team, and we go over there and we start with hermeneutics, attributes of God, biblical theology, lay a foundation. That's the first year. The second and the third year, we're just teaching them how to do consecutive exposition. So we'll go and we'll teach on Genesis, and then we'll teach them how to teach Genesis consecutively. And then will teach on the Gospel of John, or will teach on Mark, or the pastoral epistles, or whatever. Basically, the next 2 years, we're just giving them practice teaching consecutively through books of the Bible.
What is the state of their theological understanding by the time you get there? I mean, are they really, for the most part, all word of faith? Is that what you're dealing with, or are you?
Oh man, oh brother, yeah. Thanks for asking that one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You know, I think Chaba can pile on us too, but in my experience, it doesn't matter how far you go or wherever you go, the word faith people, the prosperity gospel people have gotten there first.
Wow.
You get there and they're already there. I mean, so you ask, what kind of theology are we encountering? What we're encountering is definitely the worst form of Pentecostalism run amok.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Because, there's such poverty out there. They want someone to tell them that Jesus wants them, rich and healthy. And that kind of false doctrine just spreads like wildfire. So that's what we encounter.
So why are they beating us to the punch? How is it that they're all the way out to extending to the edges of the world with that doctrine?
Man, oh man, you might not want to answer that one.
Come on,
he asked it.
Come on,
give it to me.
Yeah, golly, it doesn't matter where you go. I mean, like Joel Osteen books. We have they're everywhere.
You better stop. Wow. He's not out there.
I think it caters to people's flesh. I think that's why. And people want some hope. I mean, in Serbia where we work, 50% unemployment. 50% unemployment. People are just dying just to make ends meet. They're dealing with real health crises. And spiritual warfare is going on in Africa and Asia in a way that it doesn't. And Satan uses different methods here in the States than he uses out there.
Right.
And they want traction, and these people promise traction.
Yeah.
What are some of the most exciting things going on in these particular areas where you're working, Joost? Tell us a couple stories. Tell us some things that you're really excited about.
Yeah. I think what excites me most is when obviously when you're teaching, the thing that you live for, I mean, what you live for is when the lights come on, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're teaching these pastors, they go, "Oh, I need to repent of my preaching for the last 10 years." Because I haven't known what I'm doing, and now I understand what I'm doing. So that would be when you see that happen, and that happens all over the place where we're working. Not with everyone we're teaching, but with many.
Sure.
And you see, one example would be a guy, and this isn't someone that we've had a formal partnership with yet, but he's in Nepal. He was trained in Scotland, in Edinburgh. Got his master's degree. He's a minister of the Free Church of Scotland, and he's this Nepali guy. So you see him in a kilt, He's this Nepali guy in a kilt.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's taking what he learned back to Bhaktapur, which is right near Kathmandu, and he's starting a little Reformed seminary, just gathering some other Nepali Christians to help lead and teach in this seminary.
That is cool.
He's not daunted by the smallness of what he's doing in comparison with the massiveness of the task.
That's right.
He's plugging away. Brought his library over from Scotland.
Praise God.
It's like 5,000 volumes. He got it in on pallets somehow.
Wow.
And when I was there, these people are coming. They're waking up at early, before 6 a.m. They're in class at 6 a.m. We're teaching from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then off they go to the fields to work.
Wow.
And if I tried to do that in the West,
forget about it.
We could
maybe for 3 hours of classes before work.
Maybe 8:30 at Starbucks.
That would go over.
Maybe.
Joost, seriously.
When you're going in and setting up these, it sounds like some sort of short-term seminary workshop for leaders in other countries. When you do that, what's the, because you're largely coming up against kind of prosperity gospel that's been embedded in at least, let's say, this leader for 10 years, and how receptive or what's kind of the process for them changing their mind about their kind of prosperity gospel to some sort of reformed theology?
Yeah, good question. So two things. We fry the fish in two different fashions here. So, so let me give you both ways. One is we do non-formal training, which is the bulk of what we do. And the non-formal training is going to be a 3-year program where we go out 3 times a year. So 9 classes is basically hermeneutics to homiletics. So learning how to study the Bible and then learning how to teach it. Yeah. That's the non-formal side. But we also, and particularly what I'm responsible for, is the formal side, where we're working in schools and we're doing the whole enchilada, from hermeneutics, but also Old Testament, New Testament, pastoral counseling, the whole thing. So to answer that question, we do it in 2 different ways. Some people aren't ready; they're not equipped yet to handle the full kind of pastoral training load, and so they're getting the hermeneutics to homiletic stuff. Other guys are coming in and they've got a bachelor's degree already, or maybe they don't have that, but they have the academic chops to be able to learn at that level, and we teach them basic classic pastoral training. So a lot of the guys that come in, the reason they're coming to us, some of them already have smelt that something's burning in the kitchen, in the health, wealth, prosperity kitchen.
Yeah. Yes. Where's my bins at?
It hadn't showed up.
Right.
Oh, man.
So and then they come and they're like, teach us how to be faithful and interpret the word faithfully. So so some of the guys already know. Some of them are like, this is the only real pastoral training I have access to. And even though you guys aren't teaching health, wealth, prosperity, still I'll come and learn from you. And then what that is patiently loving them, befriending them, and not smacking them around, but just opening the Word of God and teaching them how to interpret it. And then they start seeing, I've been handing out crack to the children. This is horrible.
Wow.
Praise
so
God.
So what about like in the U.S., if you try to get a bunch of pastors together to teach them on something, that wouldn't happen. It's really hard in a town to get pastors from different denominations, that kind of thing.
That's because they know everything already.
We got it. We got it all figured out, don't we?
Man, what are you talking?
And
so true.
So how does that kind of dynamic happen overseas?
It is so humbling. It's so humbling because these guys will come from 5 hours away, taking a bus, walking miles to come in and to learn.
Wow.
And, if you're a pastor, you're listening to this and you're thinking, you're wondering if people are really appreciating. It's just such a different experience teaching out there, because people are just dying. They're so appreciative.
Wow.
And they show that appreciation through sacrifice. I mean, they are slogging in and they're dying to hear the word, and they're listening, and they're just sucking it in. Whatever they can get, they're just desperate for it. So it's a delight. It's honestly, if anybody is interested in coming and helping us on a short-term team, they can contact me. But if you come, you will never be the same. It's really amazing, transformative. So it's very humbling.
Where can we contact you at if we wanted to find out more information or come and help give our life in this situation? How can we find you?
Yep. Yeah, Joost.Nixon@trainingleadersinternational.org. There you go. So JOOST.NIXON, like the president, at trainingleadersinternational.org. Drop me an email, and I would love to speak with you. Whether you can teach on the one level, if you can teach at a master's of divinity level or a bachelor's level, talk to me, and I've got opportunities on that side.
That's awesome.
And if you're like, that's a little bit too hardcore for me, we provide curriculum on another side, and I would just love to bring people with me. So Liberia, any of you guys, Liberia, August 2018 Genesis.
Hey, Joost, that's where I was born.
In Liberia.
Were you born in Liberia?
I was 18 years there. I was born and raised there.
Oh, wow.
You're going to love it.
Nah, I'm cool. I don't want them to get mistaken about me and say, do you belong here or not? No, I'm not going out the country. Joost Nixon, guys, check out his website.
TrainingLeadersInternational.org.
There we go.
You can find out some more. Thanks, Joost, for being with us at Crosspolitic today.
Awesome.
More Crosspolitic when we come back.
Disciple makers must first be disciples. Clearnote Pastors College exists to give men knowledge, character, and skill. It exists to make shepherds who care for sheep. We don't just give students academic information. We mold, mentor, and disciple them and their families. If you feel God's call to ministry, consider preparing for the work in a solid local church that loves to train leaders. Check us out at clearnotepastorscollege.com.
This is Cy Timbrunke with Answer Anyone Apologetics. I was at a conference a few years back where the lecture included some wonderful evidences for a young earth. After the conference, I was talking with the speaker, a good friend of mine, when we were approached by a medical doctor who was attending the conference. He told my friend that he loved the lecture, up to the point where he started talking about a young earth, because, he said, that's just nuts. I asked the doctor, do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead? He said, of course, I'm a Christian. Then I asked him, what in your medical profession could prove to you that a man who was dead for 3 days could come back to life? He said, nothing. I said, then why do you believe it? He said, because that's what the Bible says. I asked him, then why don't you believe what the Bible says about the age of the earth? He had no answer. You see, as Christians, our ultimate authority is the Word of God. Denying what the Bible says may grant you more credibility with the professed unbelievers of the world, but it dishonors the Lord who bought us. When we defend our faith, our job is not to make the message more palatable to goats, but to offer sheep food to those who our Lord is calling to himself, and we can rest assured that Jesus' sheep will hear his voice. For more apologetic answers, visit AnswerAnyone.com.
Is that good coffee?
It's good.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Welcome back to Crosspolitic, y'all. And this segment is brought to you by this awesome coffee.
Crosspolitic coffee.
Crosspolitic coffee. Sovereignty Roast.
Sovereignty
Roast, man.
Yeah.
You should get yourself some. And these awesome mugs, man.
Well, these mugs right here?
These mugs. You see these? Let's see it.
Huh?
Crosspolitic.
I didn't even know we had Crosspolitic mugs.
Feast, Crosspolitic Studios.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And with us in the studio today, we have Csaba Leidenfrost. Csaba is an elder, teaching elder at Christ Church here in Moscow. And
my church.
Is with Wycliffe International. Is that what it's called?
Wycliffe Bible Translators.
Okay.
But I guess, yeah.
Wycliffe Bible Translators. And how long have you been with Wycliffe?
Since I joined in 1984.
Wow.
Yeah.
And tell us how you got into that.
Wow. Well, I was born in Liberia, West Africa. Lived 18 years there. Always wanted to be black.
You're a real African.
I always wanted to be Seriously,
really?
man. Everybody pulled at my hair. And they poked at my skin, tried to see if it would rub off.
You had it backwards.
Seriously, man.
Black privilege existed. You're like,
yeah. But you know what? The bummer in Liberia is that the Constitution says you can't be a citizen unless you're white. I mean, unless you're black.
Really?
So I couldn't become a dual citizen.
And Liberia is the country that was founded by former slaves, right?
Freed American slaves helped set up the country of Liberia back.
Moving right along.
Hey, man, his history is true.
It's true. Yeah.
But anyhow.
Black people would never do things like that. Black culture, no. We're far more fair.
They would
than
never
that.
be racist?
They would never be racist. You know?
So you grew up there till you were 18?
I grew up there till 18, came to the University of Idaho, studied wildlife, got my BS in wildlife management.
How did you get from there to U of I?
Well, my mom was from Idaho, family in southern Idaho. My parents were missionaries over there. My dad was doing Bible translation and literacy teaching for the church and the Lutheran church.
Wow.
So I came here because dad was from Hungary, escaped from Hungary, came to the U.S., became a citizen.
Wow.
And then in 1956, they went over and started their work there.
Wow.
The cool thing is that the Lutheran church had been there 100 years before they got there.
Really?
But the translation of the Bible the New Testament hadn't even been finished.
Well, that's racist.
After 100 years. No, there's more on that.
Later. No, here we go.
Okay. But anyhow, so I studied BS and got my BS in wildlife management. About third year in U of I, my studies, this lady, somebody came up from Guatemala doing research on a particular waterfowl bird species in Guatemala, and I'm just wondering if this is what the Lord wants me to do, go into wildlife management. I wanted to go back to Africa. I knew that's where God was calling me, and I wanted to do it in as a tent making kind of operation where I could work in wildlife and be encouraging churches and doing discipleship.
Yeah.
But it turns out that this lady was talking about 30 years of her life being spent on trying to save this species of waterfowl, and she's giving this lecture, and all of a sudden there's a coup d'etat.
Yeah.
Government changes. They put in a dam that floods that whole area.
Wow.
Put in condominiums around, or hotels around this
nice
this
little river
reservoir.
Yeah.
And she in passing mentions the local people weren't even allowed to wash clothes down there, but she was more concerned about the birds than the bird than the people.
Wow.
And that just hit me in the forehead, and I felt the Lord saying, basically using that to tell me, I want you to work with people that last for eternity.
Yeah.
And full time. So I started searching and then tried out Wycliffe. My dad did Bible translation. He was gifted in 8 languages. He could work in those. And I thought, man, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But a missionary spoke at a church here in town, and I ended up going over to try out linguistics and learn. Yeah. And I end up doing really good at it and realizing I do have gifts in learning languages and analyzing languages. So that's what we've been doing for the last 28 years, actually.
Yeah.
And we're just finishing the New Testament in the Bakwe language.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you this. So you've been working on translating the New Testament into Bakwe.
Right.
Which is the language of the people that live in Ivory Coast.
Well, in the Southwest, it's one of the 68 plus languages in Cote d'Ivoire, one of the smaller ones that hadn't had any missionary come to it yet.
And when
what's the population of the Bakwe people? How many Bakwe people are there?
The census, and based on the growth, the census is really old. I would put them around 14,000, and it could be as many as 20,000.
And when you began work on this, was anything started on the New Testament yet?
Nothing at all. They didn't even have an alphabet.
Okay, so you are inventing a written language.
Wow.
Yeah.
Inventing a spoken, translating a spoken language into written form.
Into written form, right.
Right.
And so you had to create an alphabet.
Right. We were taught in phonetics and phonology, the study of sound systems.
Yep. Wow.
And we didn't study the sounds, and eventually you write down things with the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet, and then eventually figure out what the actual letters in the alphabet need to be. And of course, we chose letters that were similar to French because the French have been in Cote d'Ivoire for a long time.
I thought I heard a little French in
colonial power.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then and how close are you to finishing the New Testament?
We're done with the translation of it. Right now we're getting ready to do the last read through in the village, and then sit with the typesetters and comb through and the last editing.
So so you are like the end is in sight
of the New Testament.
Of the New Testament, where you will actually be able to.
Let's define that real quick.
But we're going to be publishing this,
right?
And actually bringing copies to the people.
Yeah. Well, and of course that published, and that'll happen probably. It takes 6 months or so once we ship it off to South Korea to get it printed.
Okay.
And all that, but yeah, exactly, and it's exciting. We've been publishing things for years, different their folk tales, their oral traditions,
right,
and medical stuff. people in teaching classes, we had to develop pedagogical materials for people to learn how to read and write as well. And the exciting thing is, again, it's like Joost mentions, is that you watch someone who's never learned how to read and write, learn how to read their own language, and then they read the Gospel of John, and they go like, my pastor never preaches on this stuff. He always preaches on tithing or something else, and I don't get this. And thank you so much.
Health and wealth stuff
exactly.
that you're talking about.
What's the church like there in Ivory Coast?
Thank you.
Again, absolutely in need of solid biblical teaching. We have mega churches in the capital city that are kind of setting the culture, and the longing of the local churches or the rural churches want to be like these big mega churches, which tend to be prosperity gospel oriented. So there's
are they nervous? These big mega churches, would they be nervous the Bible getting translated and actually given over to the people?
Actually, no, not in the mega churches, because they're using they have a larger percentage of people that use French. That can use the scriptures,
some sort of
bilingualism. In the rural areas, you get less bilingualism. You get people that pastors still go off to seminary and learn, get all taught in French. They come back into the rural areas, Bible school, and sometimes it's Bible school, not seminary, but they come back into the rural areas. They've learned all this biblical terminology like justification in French. They have no idea how to translate that in their own language, even though they speak their own language.
Wow.
But they don't do the hard work of trying to communicate that, so they just preach in French. And the people are still left with no teaching.
This sounds familiar.
You know what they do in Ivory Coast? And there are solid churches that are grieving over this, but there are pastors that charge money for prayer. You come to me and you want a 50,000 prayer, that's $100, around $100. Then I'll give you a 50,000,
this
CFA
sounds
prayer.
So familiar.
Yeah, that's right.
A coin in the coffer rings.
It's horrible.
Oh, wow.
It's absolutely horrible.
Wow. Oh, man.
What?
Yeah, it's just like, the Reformation.
Yeah, this is exactly the same exact thing. Let's keep it in Latin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Keep it in French.
So why is
you
it
can
that
pay me to pray?
So you got the Lutheran Church, what happens to be one of the people, Martin Luther, who fought for the Reformation, and they're not hungry to get this Bible into the Bakwe language? Or?
Actually, with my folks, after 100 years in the country.
That was in Liberia.
That was in Liberia, next door.
Oh, yeah,
That's right next door, but it's in English. But I think the Lutheran Church, and many of the mainline denominations that went over, many of them realized after they started to work in the English or in the major language, that realized that they weren't getting to the people. And so they decided, we need to translate the Bible into these languages. And at that point, that's when Dad came in 1956, that was the priority, and there have been good things. I think the Lutheran Church in Liberia is a lot more conservative than it is back here.
Oh, wow.
Now what's your process? I took Hebrew with Chaba. That was a long time ago. Chaba was really good, and I was like, all right, I'm going to work off his coattails.
Aleph, bet,
but
Gimel,
darn it.
Darn.
So what's the process when you're translating the Bible into the Bakwe language? You got to go through like 3 or 4 languages.
Well, we're working in the New Testament, so it's mainly Greek, and we're using all the helps that are available to us today in the English, and going from the Greek. I mean, I read the Greek, I look at the commentaries, and compare the commentaries, and I try to understand the passage first, and then with that we give it a try. I give it a shot. My coworkers that I work with, Bakwe men, who speak the language perfectly, of course, they then arrange it, or if I didn't have a clue how to say it, then they come up with it. But I have to communicate with them either in Bakwe or in French, and we do a mixture of both of those.
So you're basically going from like Greek to English to French to the Bakwe language.
I speak French fluently. So I go straight from what I read straight into French. I don't have to translate it into English in my head anymore. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
How many languages do you speak?
A little bit of Bella in Liberia. I grew up speaking Liberian English, French, Bakwe. Those 4.
You almost caught up with your dad.
Wow. Yeah. What language do you think in?
Probably English.
Okay.
That's what that's what I grew up in the home speaking English and Hungarian with my dad.
Okay. All right.
Have you ever dreamed in like the Bakwe language?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
As far as like one of the things with translations is making sure that you get back to you wanted to use an analogy that matches, that they can understand that would be almost identical to the ones that we get, like parables that Jesus gave. And is that one of the challenges you guys are having with the translation, as far as how are they going to understand this connected to the regular Greek?
Yeah.
And is it transferring one for one, or how are those things?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of times people compromise with the translations, like with Chinese translations, they use rice.
Well, we do too.
Yeah, I know we do too. That's
in our own translations.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, but we have a huge amount of helps where a lot of other people don't.
True.
So, is that a challenge for you guys too, to say, okay, we need to stick strictly to exactly how it was written, so that they can work to understand it, or give them the idea so they can grasp
like the message?
I mean, well, the message doesn't even give you the idea.
Yeah. How do you guys do that?
Well, the individual translator has the last say on what they do. In my translation principles courses that I took, I think Wycliffe started out, and we were more erring on the side of freer translation, dynamic equivalence. Now things have swum back to be more on the side of not necessarily literal formal equivalence, but leaning in that direction. Many of us.
Okay.
What happens is, in translation, translation is an art. There's not just, there's all different types of translation.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're going from, and a lot of people that criticize some translations assume that you can just translate things straight over into another language, and if they don't have that there, you just give it anyway, and then they'll learn it,
right,
and they'll get it eventually. But the problem is, if you do that, you might as well do it interlinear, and you might as well teach them Greek, right? Yeah. Ultimately, so, and it's easy to go from in Indo-European language families, you can bring over a lot of the genitive construction straight into English, because it's in the family of Indo-European languages. You go into languages that are non-Indo-European, and you end up with some that have no passives.
Oh wow!
So you have to provide a subject for a passive construction,
right?
And the Greek didn't have it,
right?
But it's implied in the Greek. So what we do is look at the Greek and say, okay, there's an implied God is the subject of this,
right?
And so you supply God, and is that translation? Is that correct? Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? That's the language. God scrambled the languages at Babel, and he did a superb job of it. I mean, the Bakwe language has 3 tones. It's incredibly complex. You could write, 200-300 PhDs just on the grammar, I'm sure.
Wow. So one of the things too is that this is the first translation that they'll have of the New Testament, right?
Yes.
And so it'll get better.
Yeah.
That's the thing, that this is like, you can't, is amazing.
Another thing I would just say, just to follow up on your last question, is that footnotes are another way of supplying some of the Bible background for a particular. So if I've used an idiom that is there in the Greek and that they don't have necessarily in the language,
right?
Or if they don't have the word camel. They've never seen a camel, let's say. What do you do
or
there?
Like snow.
or snow, for example. Yeah. But camel, what do? You get something, you transliterate the word, and they say samo, so you say samo, and some of them say shamo, and then you put a footnote in there to explain what a camel is,
right?
Or snow, for example. The Bakwe do have a word for snow. They basically call it the powder of
the sky.
No, the hailstones. The powder of hailstones.
Powder of hail.
The powder of hail.
Yeah, it's ground down.
I got that.
I like that. I got kind of like your magic bread. I like that too. Go ahead, Gabe.
Now, I think one of the crazy things that you're doing is you're basically spending a life of working on the Bible so 20,000 people can read it.
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
And you're going through, years and years of translation, learning their language, constructing the language first before you can translate the Bible into it, and it's a work for 20,000 people that no one sees here in the U.S.
Yeah, you should go to somebody like that's a larger country that it can actually be effective on.
They already have the Bible.
Well, the cool thing,
imagine that.
Yeah,
it's really. the larger languages in Cote d'Ivoire have been already reached by the missions. When they first went, they always hit the larger groups first because they're more strategic
that makes
way.
Sense. Yeah, sure.
Right. But the Bakwe are maybe not the most strategic in terms of, okay, this is a smaller group that's sort of been ignored by the government for many years.
Right.
They're traditionally hunters and gatherers. Now they're in the cocoa chocolate belt of the country where there's an enormous amount of chocolate, and there's not necessarily strategic, but it's feasible to actually get the scriptures in every single household.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Whereas in a group of 1 million or 3 million, you in your lifetime may not hit every household, even if you went door to door.
And back to your original point, these are human beings with souls that will never die.
Yeah. Amen.
And so, give yourself to waterfowl.
Yes.
Or give yourself to these individuals who are going to live forever.
Yeah.
And
amen.
Well, and then like building a language for people, or basically building a written language for people. I mean, language is culture.
Right.
Like language is what holds people, society. It goes back to the Babel. The reason why God split, how the mechanism that God used to split up nations was through language.
Right. And now we're giving back when you give them the word of God and give them, but you're also, like you said, you're giving them like stories, their folk tales and folklore and this kind of stuff. But this is now, the ability to, write poetry, write stories,
sure,
and build and have a community life,
and the scriptures, so that the bad teaching that they're hearing, they're going to eventually be able to question their pastors and say, "What? The Bible, it doesn't say that."
Right.
Amen.
Look, I read this. I know this.
You're reversing the curse of the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And you know what? There. That's how you use white privilege. Seriously, if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
Shaba, thank you for being on the show, man.
Yeah,
praise God for you, man.
Yeah.
Great pleasure.
Really
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Until next week, go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Crosspolitic.